August 27th, 1941, 10:50 a.m., south of Iceland, in the gray, rolling swells of the North Atlantic. The steel hull of U-570 groans as it breaks the surface, water cascading off the conning tower like a waterfall. Salt spray lashes the bridge, stinging the eyes of Kapitänleutnant Hans-Joachim Rahmlow as he climbs the ladder, desperate for fresh air after days of suffocating misery below. Inside the boat, the air is thick with the stench of vomit and diesel. It's her first war patrol, everyone's first. Rahmlow, an experienced surface officer but new to U-boats, commands a crew of rookies. Heavy seas have battered them since leaving Trondheim. Men lie slumped over controls, faces green, retching into buckets. Some can't even stand. Rahmlow had ordered them submerged earlier that morning for respite from the wallowing, but now, risking the surface in these Allied patrolled waters, he needs to ventilate the boat. No periscope sweep, no cautious look, just up. He pushes open the hatch. Cold wind hits his face. For a moment, relief. Then the roar. A Lockheed Hudson bomber screams overhead, so low Rahmlow can see the pilot's face. Squadron Leader James H. Thompson of 269 Squadron on routine anti-submarine patrol from Kaldadarnus, Iceland. He's been circling, waiting for a call from another Hudson that spotted something suspicious below. Thompson banks hard, lining up his attack run. On the bridge, Rahmlow freezes for a split second. Alarm! Crash dive! Klaxons blare. Men scramble in panic below. Valves slam open. The deck tilts as the bows dip. Too late. Thompson releases 4 250-pound depth charges. They arc into the sea, detonating in a perfect straddle around the fleeing U-boat. The ocean erupts. Massive columns of white water tower up, then crash down. Shock waves slam into U-570 like hammers from the deep. The boat lurches violently. Lights shatter. Gauges crack. Pipes burst. Water sprays in. In the engine room, battery cells rupture. Acid mixes with seawater, releasing choking fumes. The engineers scream, "Chlorine gas! Poison gas!" Panic explodes through the boat. Men claw at their throats, coughing, eyes streaming. They seal the watertight door to the aft compartment, trapping the gas behind, but trapping themselves forward with a flooding, dying boat. Rahmlow, thrown against the periscope stand, feels the deck shudder beneath him. Minor damage structurally, but the crew? They're breaking. What happens next? As the Hudson circles back with guns blazing, will go down as one of the most astonishing surrenders in naval history. The Hudson circles again, engines thundering like judgment overhead. Thompson's gunner opens up. Tracers stitch across the conning tower, ricocheting off steel with sharp, metallic cracks. Bullets wind past Rahmlow's head as he ducks, slamming the hatch shut behind him. The bridge crew tumbles down the ladder in a heap of limbs and curses. Below, chaos reigns. The control room is lit only by emergency lamps, red, flickering, hellish. Water sloshes ankle-deep across the deck plates. Men cough violently, convinced the acrid fumes rising from the bilges are chlorine gas seeping through ruptured battery cells. One young machinist collapses, clawing at his collar, gasping, "We're all dead. It's poison." Rahmlow pushes through the press of bodies to the damage control station. His chief engineer, Oberleutnant zur See Bernhard Berndt, shouts over the din, "Batteries cracked in the aft compartment, sir. Acid and seawater mixing. Chlorine!" It's a death sentence in their minds. Every U-boat man knows the stories. Crews suffocating in their own steel coffin, lungs burning out from the inside. Rahmlow hesitates. The boat is still diving, but sluggishly. Depth gauges creep past 50 meters. The hull pops and groans under pressure. Another attack now, and they're finished. He grabs the speaking tube to the aft torpedo room. No answer. The door is dogged shut, sealed by the terrified crew to contain the gas. They've trapped 4 men back there. In that moment, something fractures. Rahmlow, a decorated surface fleet officer who volunteered for U-boats seeking glory, feels the weight of command crush him. These are boys, 18, 19 years old, seasick for days. Now convinced they're dying slowly in a chemical tomb. He looks around, faces streaked with oil and tears, hands trembling on valves. No one meets his eyes. Then, a voice from the radio room, Funkmott Paul Rosing, barely 20. "Aircraft still overhead, sir. He's calling for help." Rahmlow climbs back to the conning tower, cracks the hatch just enough to peer out. The Hudson banks wide, sunlight glinting off its wings. Thompson is patient. He knows the U-boat can't stay down long with damaged batteries venting hydrogen, risking explosion, or up long without being shredded. Rahmlow's mind races. Fight, scuttle, dive and pray? But the crew, they're already broken. He makes the decision no U-boat commander has ever made on a first patrol. "Surface," he orders, voice flat. "Prepare to abandon ship." The words ripple through the boat like a shock wave. Men stare at him in disbelief. But as the tanks blow and U-570 claws her way back to the surface, something even more unthinkable is about to happen. One that will hand the Allies a prize beyond their wildest dreams. U-570 breaches the surface again, rolling heavily in the swells. White foam boils around the saddle tanks as compressed air vents with a deafening hiss. Rahmlow throws open the conning tower hatch. Wind and spray blast in. He climbs out onto the bridge, followed by a handful of pale, shaking crewmen. The deck is slick, treacherous. Waves slap against the hull, drenching them instantly. Above, the Hudson roars past once more. Thompson sees the hatch open, figures emerging. He pulls up sharply, wary of the 20mm anti-aircraft gun mounted on the winter garden. But no one mans it. Instead, something unthinkable happens. One of the German sailors, a young matrose whose name history won't record, pulls off his white sweater. Hands trembling, he waves it frantically over his head. A white flag. Then another joins him, and another. Shirts, towels, anything white ripped from bodies and held aloft. Rahmlow stands motionless at first, gripping the bridge rail. His cap is gone, hair plastered to his forehead. He watches his crew surrender without a single shot, fired in anger. Thompson circles lower, incredulous. In the cockpit, he speaks into the radio. Enemy submarine surfaced. Crew on deck waving white flags. Appears to be surrendering. Back in Iceland, the message crackles across 269 Squadron's operations room. Stunned silence. A U-boat surrendering intact, on the surface, to a single aircraft. It's unprecedented. U-boat commanders are drilled to fight to the last torpedo, scuttle if necessary. Never surrender the boat. But here it is. On the deck below, men begin throwing equipment overboard, anything that might be secret. Binoculars, charts. But in their panic, they forget the most critical items. The Enigma machine sits untouched in the radio room. Codebooks lie scattered on the chart table. The boat's secret orders still in Rahmlow's cabin. As more Hudsons arrive overhead, circling like vultures, and a trawler steams toward the scene from the horizon, the crew clusters on the casing, hands raised. Rahmlow descends to the deck. He looks at his men, 44 souls, some barely shaving yet, and feels the full weight of humiliation. But worse is coming, because what the Allies are about to discover inside this surrendered U-boat will send shockwaves through Bletchley Park and change the course of the Battle of the Atlantic. Hours crawl by on the rolling deck. The crew huddles together under the watchful eyes of circling Hudsons, their engines a constant drone overhead. Salt crusts on uniforms, hands stay raised. No one speaks much. Rahmlow stands apart, staring at the horizon, face unreadable. Then the rescue arrives, not for the Germans, but for the victors. HMS Kingston Agate, an armed trawler from the Northern Patrol, steams into view. Later, the destroyer HMS Burwell closes in. A boarding party, Royal Navy officers in ratings armed with pistols and Tommy guns, approaches cautiously in a whaler. Lieutenant David Ingram, the boarding officer from Burwell, climbs the slippery casing first. He steps onto the deck of U-570, expecting resistance, a last-ditch fight, maybe booby traps. Instead, he finds 44 subdued Germans lined up, hands on heads. Rahmlow steps forward, salutes stiffly, and in clipped English says, "I am the commanding officer. The boat is yours." Ingram can hardly believe it. An intact Type VIIC U-boat, Germany's deadliest hunter-killer, handed over without a struggle. The boarding party fans out below. They move through the control room, past the diesel stench and flickering lights, rifles ready. What they see stops them cold. On the chart table, navigational books open, logs untouched. In the radio shack, the Enigma cipher machine still in its wooden case, rotor set, plug board connected. Beside it, the current codebooks for August and September 1941, short signal books, weather ciphers. The keys to the Kriegsmarine's most guarded secrets. One sailor spots a leather satchel, Rahmlow's personal orders from BDU, Admiral Donitz's headquarters. Everything intact. Ingram radios back to Burwell, prize secured, Enigma and all cipher material captured undamaged. Aboard the British ships, the message triggers pandemonium. Commanders know what this means. For 2 years, Allied convoys have bled under the U-boat wolf packs. Bletchley Park's codebreakers have struggled to crack the evolving Enigma settings. Now, an entire month's worth of keys, plus the machine itself, has fallen into their hands like a gift. But the North Atlantic is no place to linger. A gale is blowing up. U-570 is taking on water through damaged vents. She's in danger of foundering. The decision is made. Tow her to Iceland. As thick hawsers are passed across and the tow begins, slow and perilous through rising seas, the true scale of this panicked surrender starts to dawn on both sides. For the Germans, humiliation. For the British, an intelligence windfall that will soon begin saving thousands of lives. Yet the story isn't over, because renaming and recommissioning this captured wolf as HMS Graf is only the beginning of her strange second life. Night falls over the North Atlantic, black and furious. Waves tower 20 feet high as the gale whips the sea into a maelstrom. U-570, now flying the white ensign, but still wearing her German gray, strains at the end of the tow line from HMS Burwell. The hawser groans, stretched taut like a bowstring. Aboard the captured boat, a skeleton prize crew of Royal Navy volunteers battles to keep her afloat. Lieutenant George Collett, a seasoned submariner, has taken command. With him, a handful of British ratings and a few cooperative Germans. Engineers coerced into helping work the diesels and pumps. Water pours in through fractured vents and cracked flanges. The bilges rise alarmingly. Pumps wheeze and sputter. Every few minutes, Collett orders the tow slowed, fearing the line will part and send the priceless U-boat to the bottom. On Burwell's bridge, Captain James Godfrey watches the tow through binoculars, face grim. Lose her now, and the Enigma hull vanishes forever. Below, in U-570's control room, the atmosphere is surreal. British sailors in duffel coats stand shoulder to shoulder with sullen Germans in leather jackets. Orders barked in English, answered in German. The air still reeks of battery acid and fear. One young German machinist, tears in his eyes, begs Collett, "Please, sir, don't let her sink. She's our home." Collett, pipe clenched in teeth, nods silently. He understands more than they know. For 3 agonizing days, the convoy crawls north. Burwell, the trawlers, and their battered prize. Storms batter them relentlessly. The tow line parts twice. Each time, in pitch darkness and howling wind, whalers fight through crashing seas to pass a new cable. On the 3rd night, disaster nearly strikes. A monstrous wave slams U-570 sideways. The tow snaps again. She sleets off into the darkness. Engines dead, drifting helplessly toward submerged rocks off Iceland's south coast. Collett orders emergency flares fired. Red stars arc into the storm. Burwell turns back, searching. For hours, the prize is lost. Then, a miracle. Dawn breaks gray and cold on August 30th. A lookout spots her, wallowing but afloat, only miles from Thorlikshafen harbor. The line is reconnected one final time. Slowly, painfully, U-570 is nursed into Icelandic waters and anchored under heavy guard. The crew, Rahmlow and his men, are marched off under marine escort, heads down, into captivity. But the boat herself, she's safe. And waiting inside her steel belly are secrets that will soon reach the hushed huts of Bletchley Park. secrets that will begin to turn the tide against the wolf packs Dunitz unleashed. Yet even this extraordinary capture carries one final, ironic twist. September 1941, Bletchley Park, England. The quiet estate hums with unspoken urgency. Crates from Iceland arrive under heavy guard. Inside, the Enigma machine from U-570, its rotors still locked in the exact settings used on August 27th. Beside it, pristine codebooks, the Heimish keys for the entire month, plus short signal books that wolfpacks use for rapid position reports. Alan Turing and the codebreakers in Hut 8 tear into the material like starving men at a feast. For months they've been locked out of the naval Enigma traffic after the Germans added a fourth rotor to some machines. But this capture bridges the gap. Within days, ultra-intelligence begins flowing again. Convoys rerouted, wolfpacks evaded, U-boats hunted down with pinpoint accuracy. The direct result? A sharp drop in Allied shipping losses through the autumn and winter of 1941. Hundreds of merchant sailors who would have died now sail home. Thousands of tons of cargo reach Britain intact. Back in Iceland, the boat herself undergoes transformation. Repaired in Thorlekshafen, then towed across the Atlantic under her own power, she arrives in Barrow-in-Furness in November. Painted Admiralty Grey, fitted with British radar, and Asdic, commissioned as HMS Graf, the only German U-boat ever to serve in the Royal Navy. For 2 years, she patrols against her former sisters, training British crews in U-boat tactics, testing new weapons, even sinking an enemy submarine in 1943. Rahmlow and his men, meanwhile, spend the war in Canadian POW camps. The young commander never commands again. Dunitz, furious at the surrender, ensures the story is suppressed in Germany. No Iron Crosses here, only disgrace. But history remembers the panic born of inexperience and fear. A single mistaken belief in poison gas, a white sweater waved in desperation, and the dominoes fall. One terrified crew's breaking point hands the Allies a window into the Kriegsmarine's most guarded secrets. And in the cold calculus of the Atlantic War, that moment of human frailty saves far more lives than it costs. The feared gray wolves suddenly find themselves hunted, because on a stormy August morning south of Iceland, a U-boat crew surrendered not to bullets or bombs, but to their own terror.